was sitting in my dorm one night. I came back and I was having this great day and I'd had this great afternoon and laughing with my friend, and my roommate says, you might want to check your messages. And I said, why?
It's just so wild, the things that were running through my mind. I was both praying and just trying to grapple with the reality of, in an instant, how life had changed.
I turned around the corner, and there it was, the first sight. It was just an image that stayed in my head for a while.
We just kind of running as fast as we could, to go get help.
I knew something terrible had happened.
We know God can work miracles, and we were hoping that maybe it would be.
James was one of those guys where you're doing a Bible study and you're flipping through the Bible and you're reading and you look up and you do like a triple take and he's staring at you like with this goofy smile.
He's just fun-loving. He'd call us up and be like, you want to go play Frisbee golf?
James and I did so many things with fireworks. We would, those little foam airplanes you throw around? We'd attach ball and rockets to the wings.
One of the first stories he told was about being in a soccer game and he got his leg broke by a girl, so that was a big joke.
I remember just riding in his truck with him and seeing the book of James, on the dashboard, and we got talking about how that book has impacted his life. Just draw near to God and God will draw near to you.
He would sit and talk to you for a long time if you needed to talk.
James was a giver. Like, he was well in himself, and so he could care about other people.
He was just encouraging to be around.
But he also recognized his sin. I remember him coming to me and asking about problems with pornography. He wasn't pure all the time, but he had that desire to be. He had asked my father to lock out on our DirecTV receiver anything greater than a PG-13 rating. I mean, he had pride problems, just like, we all have sinful problems. And he was a real person. He wasn't a perfect person.
When he went to kindergarten, he just couldn't remember the symbols associated with letters. He couldn't even pass kindergarten because he couldn't learn the alphabet.
It's very hard for him to learn, and he had to work for everything. And so he had the best grade point average out of all of us.
And he graduated with honors on National Honor Society.
He never quit. His attitude was like that very much. He just would keep on pursuing it.
You always thought because of that drive, he would go far. In high school, he took a course called Rocky Mountain High and learned how to climb. And he loved climbing.
James is one of the most tenacious climbers.
During the summer, he would climb all over the Garden of the Gods.
James and another young man were wanting to start a climbing ministry. He wanted to teach this group of Campus Crusade kids how to climb.
He wasn't the best climber, but boy, he had a heart for it. He wouldn't give up. I guess that characteristic of James carries through to other aspects of his life. One would be his Christian faith. The pursuing that he had, the tenacity that he had, showed both in the Bible study and in his lifestyle.
We had planned kind of a Campus Crusade guys' night thing.
James comes over to my house. Hey, we got a camping trip going on this weekend. What are you doing? Why don't you come along with us? He said it was going to be like canoeing and biking and rock climbing and, brats. So that got me hooked. So we drove up talking and chatting, and he was telling me about how he didn't ask a girl out. How he wanted to, but he didn't. That evening, I remember it was windy.
It was like 20 below with wind chill.
We couldn't get our brats to cook, and we were just jumping up and down to stay warm.
All the sodas and all the drinks were just frozen because they were outside, just a brick of ice.
So we were all huddled inside a big 5-man dome.
We had the lantern going. It provided light and foot warmth because all our feet were huddled around it.
It was like those rotten times where a bunch of guys are together and you're all having a rotten time, and that's the best thing about it, is you're all having a rotten time.
We just had a very good time of talking, getting to know each other.
Talking about our lives and relationships and whatever came to mind.
Different war stories, like when we broke, how many bones we've broken.
Rock climbing and camping and, you know, stars and...
Who had the most scars from childhood, you know.
I guess typical guy talk around the tent.
As stuff will sometimes happen on nights like that, conversation got a little bit more serious.
Somebody told a story about a boulder fell on somebody and crushed him. And we're like, man, that, you know, you could just die in a second, you know? So we started talking about, you know, death.
That's where my most enduring picture of James will come from. So we were in this blue tent, and he leaned back against my sleeping bag. And he just said, call me crazy, but I'm not afraid to die.
Call me crazy. Call me crazy.
Call me crazy, but I'm not afraid to die.
And he just said, call me crazy, but I'm not afraid.
After lunch on Saturday, we went around to look for some rock faces to do some climbing on.
There's these huge boulders up like this, you know, and
somebody saw this one rock that was standing by itself on the other side of the creek from where we were. It's just begging to be climbed.
We set up a rappelling rope.
I was putting on my harness.
And then I said, I'll go first. And James said, no, I'll go ahead and clean the lead for you, make sure there's no problems, and go down in front of you.
I saw him put the rope through all three of the locking beaners. It was correct. We checked his harness. I checked my harness.
James divided the rope in half and threw the rope over.
I was looking for my gloves at the time, my rappelling gloves.
He went out about 5 foot or so and then started hopping down the side.
I looked over and saw James wearing them.
The guys were talking about something, so I kind of turned back and was looking at them.
James, you're wearing my gloves, aren't you? And he didn't say anything to that. He knew he was wearing my gloves.
As I looked, one end of the rope snaked up through the carabiner and fell back down.
That's when I heard Jay say, "Dear God, he fell."
So at that point, I knew something terrible had happened.
He fell 45, 50 feet.
My first initial instinct was to get down to the bottom of the rock as quick as possible. You know, I was praying on the way down, Lord, don't let him be dead. And the first thing I saw was just him lying there on the rock.
His eyes were shut. He was not conscious.
I remember taking off the jacket I had and putting it under his head.
And he wasn't breathing, so I started doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
It was at that point that it kind of hit me like, you know, wow, this is happening.
I thought, it's gotta be okay. It's just got to be okay.
There were probably about 15 people around that were praying in different groups. I knew that prayer was probably the most important thing that could be been done at that point.
I went to the grocery store and I told my friend that I met there. I said, I haven't heard from James. I'm really kind of worried. And she said, oh, he's probably fine. And I said, yeah, he's probably fine. So it got late and I tried calling his cell phone and no answer. And then after dinner, they came to the door
and told us to go sit down. And they told us James was gone.
And it was just a moment of silence. Just, that's it, he's gone. Okay, he's gone, you know. Just, you know, we all just fell to our knees.
And I dropped against my bathroom door and I said, what?
He was just with us, you know, moments ago as we drove in, you know. Just a funny guy, you know, redheaded freckle kid, you know. Just in a moment, he's gone.
It just didn't seem like it was possible.
No one had ever died that I knew before. He was my age, and yet his life was done.
Tim took it really hard. I didn't really believe it until I saw the body.
put his hand on me and my family, and he gave us some amazing strength to get through that hard time.
The very fact that, as God would have it, he not only said the night before, call him crazy, but I'm not afraid to die, but that the same day he died, he told the crew, I'm not afraid to die. And so that was ringing in everybody's ears when he died. So the attitude was a little different.
James lived in such a way that he knew of Christ's heaven, of the afterlife, you know, of what was going to be next.
Not that he had some sort of death wish or anything, but he had determined that there is a God, that heaven is a reality. There's just no reason at all to be afraid of dying.
My extended family doesn't know Christ. When they came out for the funeral, they were able to see not a family destroyed, but a grieving family that missed their son and brother, but also had hope.
To know that his going has brought several people to the Lord.
I don't think I would have called myself a Christian. I still had questions. The story of James's death, the words that he was saying about he wasn't afraid to die. I've been afraid to die. I don't understand. It's been a big question in my head. The way Marcia and Carl and the boys were handling everything and their faith, it was very impressive. Tim, too, he had James's Bible and outside his Bible, and how they held on to their Bibles, how important it was to them. And that started getting me thinking. I went back home and I went and bought a Bible. I think it's Paul that wrote something about once you're Christian, your life will change. People will notice it about you. You feel different. And it's true. And my life has changed.
Friends of James's and friends of mine have come to know Christ because of this.
I'd grown up in a Christian home my whole life, and I was at Moody Bible Institute studying then to be an urban minister, to work with urban kids, and yet I didn't know who God was. And through James and through all that happened with that, I just said, God, I don't know you. Here's everything that I am, here's everything that I have, and I want to know you. And I'm disgustingly filthy. And I have so much sin. I need you to take all this away. And my life was changed. His death is really the thing that triggered me to find this God. James never knew this, Erica.
To have one of your closest friends, die, it's challenging in many ways. How willing am I, to live for him each and every moment? Do I take captive every thought? Are the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart pleasing to him? I want each and every one of those to be so. And the reason being is because life can be taken just like that.
I've had his picture. I took it out of my scrapbook and I put it up on my wall next to the obituary, and just as a daily reminder that I needed to live every day to its fullest.
The thrilling thing about James's life is that it's a good story. He had found what his life was about, and he found it in time.
The most valuable thing he did in his whole life was going after that relationship with Jesus Christ. It was not just some religion that he was partaking in. He wanted to know it. He wanted to grow in his likeness. He wanted to draw others to him. And I believe that God is glorified by his life and by his death.